And welcome back to Jeff Korir Live here at Citizen Television on the bench, late at night. Yes, indeed, we burn the midnight oil here with Foreign Affairs Principal Secretary.
Literally.
Literally. But you're used to this, Dr. You're used to this, man. You probably work with like 10 time zones and people calling your phone throughout the day and night, right? There you go. So, African Union, our candidate, Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga, is submitted. There was a big ceremony not too long ago in Addis, right? You all were there, and the chances of him getting this job, and it's debatable. The critics saying that he'll never get it. The others saying the Djibouti guy is much more qualified. So, what are the chances from where you sit that he will become the next AUC chairman?
Well, I think first let's persuade ourselves that this is a very important position. The position of the chairperson of the African Union Commission is a very critical position, particularly at this time where there are major geopolitical shifts on the one hand, but on the other hand, there is a new sense of an Africa rising, an Africa that is more assertive, an Africa that is being sort of seen more seriously or taken more seriously at the international level. And so, number one is to understand that because of the importance of this job, because of where it sits in the hierarchy of global institutions and leadership, the question then becomes, what kind of a leader are you looking for? It has to be a leader with a certain acumen, a certain level of experience, a certain depth of understanding, a certain combination of networks. A man or a woman with skills in political negotiation, political engagement, but also with a fair understanding of the big picture, what is required to drive the continent. So Kenya has, in Mr. Raila Odinga, a formidable candidate, a candidate who understands Africa, not just in theory, but who has traversed this continent. A man who is truly a Pan-Africanist, is known the continent over as a champion of democratic governance, which is one of the challenges that Africa has. It's the challenge of democratic deficit or democratic erosion. He's experienced it firsthand and has real solutions to bring to the table. Now, part of what Africa suffers from is also infrastructure deficit. You have in Mr. Odinga a candidate who understands the place of infrastructure, be it roads, be it rail. He can describe roads in far-flung places like Cameroon, Gabon, Mozambique. He knows what road is required. So in terms of the addressing the infrastructure deficit, which is what is necessary to unlock the potential that Africa holds, the potential that Africa holds in terms of agriculture, in terms of mining, and in terms of people being able to move around the continent. Mr. Odinga understands these issues deeply. In that, he compares to no other candidate. Secondly, Mr. Odinga's political acumen means that he can negotiate with any leader at his level. So Africa's representative to the G7, for example, to the G20, for example, where Africa has now been invited. If it is Mr. Odinga, you will have in him somebody who can engage with any heads of state. Probably he already knows them. He's not being introduced to that stage, so to speak. So he comes with a huge advantage. And when he stood before the audience in Addis Ababa, when we were launching his candidature about 2 weeks ago, he came out superbly. He performed so well, and he demonstrated clearly why he's the right person. So the question then should be, do we have the numbers? And the magic numbers here is that we need 2/3 of the vote in order to be able to succeed. Okay? And so I'm here to tell you, Jeff, and to tell Kenyans that we do have a strategy that involves, on the one hand, an engagement between President Ruto and other leaders. He's done this already in several forums, all the way from the time when he was holding the meetings here in Nairobi on IDA under the framework of the World Bank, under the African Development Bank, when he was holding meetings earlier this year. He's done this in the Korir Africa Summit. He's done this at FOCAC. He's done this on calls. We've written out letters. We have our missions, the ones you were discussing, engaging with different, different governments. And so that's one layer of the campaign. The other layer of the campaign, Jeff, of course, involves my boss, the Prime Cabinet Secretary, who is also engaging with his counterparts. And then the third layer of it involves the candidate himself, who's been engaged in one-on-one engagements with different leaders. Because, like I said, he doesn't need introduction. So there are countries that will vote for Mr. Odinga, not because he's Kenya's candidate, but because he's Mr. Odinga.
And there's some who will not
and there's some that might have a problem with him, even though they don't have a problem with him. And so we've got to find that balance. Yeah. And so I'm here to tell you that we've done our mapping, we understand the terrain, we know where the challenges lay, and we learned from our failed bid. The bid of Ambassador Amina Mohammed. We've drawn a great deal of lessons from that, and we are very targeted on this campaign. We may not run hither and thither in terms of being able to move this matter, but we are very strategic, very targeted. Today, for example, Honorable Odinga is headed to West Africa. He'll be in Togo, he'll be in Benin, he'll be in Ghana, he'll be in Nigeria, Senegal, Cote d'Ivoire, and that belt of countries essentially engaging with different leaders. And so we are extremely confident that come February, Mr. Odinga will succeed in this bid, and Kenya's candidate will be successful.
Someone could ask, is it as sure as tomorrow is Thursday?
It's an election, Jeff. It's an election. It's a contest. We also can see the strength of the other candidates, and so we are cognizant that this is a competition. But we know as well that we have a formidable candidate, and we have a working strategy.
You're going to pop the champagne anytime soon?
On the day. That will hold. That will wait until the day. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Let's go to the magic wall. Lots of reactions, feedback coming in thick and fast. Thick and fast. Wolero says, what are the mechanisms put in place to enable the common mwananchi to understand our foreign policy? Mechanisms in place. Foreign policy, is this straightforward?
So, number one, what we have done with this foreign policy, like I mentioned earlier, is that we have engaged the citizens themselves. And so we have interacted with different stakeholders. The last meeting that was held this Monday under the chairmanship of the Prime Cabinet Secretary was a validation meeting. And it was an open forum. We published in our newspapers a notice inviting Kenyans to come and give their comment and interact with the draft policy. And so this has been developed consultatively, involving many Kenyans. But now that we will have a policy in the next month or so, our intention is actually to take this policy to the wananchi, to take foreign policy, to mashinani, if you like, where we will hold county consultations, working very closely with our counties, who, by the way, under this policy are also going to be incorporated as critical stakeholders in implementing this policy. Because, as you know, counties, a number of counties are, straddle our borders, for example.
Yes.
And therefore, they have a relationship with another country, if you like. Wow. Okay? Some counties enter into investment agreements with companies from abroad, and therefore they are players, and they need to understand what's going on. And so it is our intention to be able to take this policy mashinani, so that Wananchi can understand it. We will also hopefully be able to translate this policy into Swahili, so that also broadens access quite a bit.
Nice.
Thank you.
Casey Richard says, please ask the PS that if his statement is true, isn't it a bigger issue that we had mercenaries in our capital city without the knowledge of our security and intelligence agencies? Question is, how safe are we? We're referring to the first thing we talked about, which was Ugandan opposition leader Kizza Besigye. How safe are we?
No, I think this is a valid question. I take the view personally that what has happened is a very serious matter. I mentioned earlier that I don't have all the facts, that our security agencies, when I spoke with them earlier in the day, they told me they were investigating the issue. It is my very sincere hope that they will uncover exactly the manner in which this opposition leader, Kizza Besigye, was forcefully removed from premises in our country and taken to Uganda and now stands charged. I do not necessarily subscribe to the chronology of events as has been shared in the media. And that's why I would implore my brother Richards to hold his guns so that we can be able to have all the information before we make we decide or we conclude that we are dealing here with mercenaries. It is our strong view that our security forces are on alert to provide security, because that's the first role that government has, which is the provision of security for its citizens.
Senator Jim Risch, Republican from Idaho, says Uganda's abduction of an opposition leader in Kenya raises serious questions about important U.S. partners violating international norms like sovereignty, respect for human rights, and rule of law. This is especially concerning given the Biden administration's rhetoric about transnational repression.
Transnational repression.
Transnational repression. The senator from Idaho.
Well, I think I'm really grateful that Senator Risch is watching this show. I know some of the people who work for him. They're friends of Kenya. My friend JT, I know, is his chief of staff. Certainly, this is a matter that is deeply concerning to Kenya. The circumstances under which the opposition leader of Uganda has been removed from Kenya is something that concerns us as much as it concerns him. We have made it very clear that our security agencies are engaged in investigation to understand the circumstances that have led to this situation. And we are more than happy to engage with the office of Senator Risch once these investigations are complete, so that we can be able to apprise the office with further particulars and better information.
All right. Moving along. I am Kipto says, under your watch, we've had numerous diplomatic gaffes, which puts into question your competence. 1, the Morocco-Sahrawi Republic gaffe during swearing in. 2, what's that? Refoulement of the Turks. 3, abduction of Besigye. How can the nation ever recover its reputation?
I think Kenya's reputation is solid. We were just discussing with Jeff here the fact that Kenya is considered a safe haven for many. The reality of the matter is that these outlier cases, regrettable as they may be, do not touch, they do not even begin to, to sort of put a blur, on Kenya's sterling reputation, as a safe haven for refugees and for persons fleeing persecution. Like I mentioned, with regard to the Turkish situation, again, this was a very, very difficult situation in which two principles that we hold dear collided. And we, as government, chose to err on the side of saying we would rather err on the side of respect for territorial integrity of Turkey and non-interference in the affairs of Turkey. We got assurances from the government of Turkey with regard to the manner in which these individuals will be handled once they got into Turkey, and therefore we add in the direction of releasing them to these authorities based on the evidence that were given. And so international relations at this point in time is a very dynamic and complex space where, one must be able to understand ultimately that we have to safeguard our national interest, which is the peace, stability, and commonwealth, of the Kenyan people.
Let's not forget the Turks were never given a trial in Kenya. They were never tried here.
No, they weren't.
Shiko says, ask the CS Foreign Affairs, that's PS.
Not yet.
Mr. Korir Singh, what have you done for my brother and cousin George Masharia, who is still in captivity since their abduction in 2014 in Mogadishu? And in October 2024, my brother called and he is asking for help from the government. I think you know that story. Yeah? We did that story on Citizen TV. We covered it extensively. George Masharia, who was abducted back in 2014, 10 years ago.
To be honest with you, Jeff, I have no particulars on this case. I would wish to apply myself to it so that I can respond to Shiko, but I don't have the facts. I invite Shiko to come by and see me. At my office. We take these issues very, very seriously, as we have demonstrated in the case of Stephen Monyaho, whom, as you know, Jeff, you asked me this question before. He's been incarcerated in Saudi Arabia, and I'm happy to report that even though he had been sentenced to death and was set to be executed in October of this year, because of our negotiation with the Saudi authorities, because our mission in Riyadh has worked very, very hard on this matter. We have a decree now from the authorities in Riyadh, suspending the sentence for another 1 year to allow for us to be able to collect whatever compensation is necessary. I want to assure the mother of Stephen Monyaho, our mother, Dorothy Kweyu, whom I have met, that we are working to make sure that this is the last Christmas that Stephen will be spending in Saudi. And it is our hope that by next Christmas or before that, he should be back home. And that will be a day of real rejoicing for the family and for all Kenyans. Nice.
Yeah. By the way, Shiko is a very famous actress here in Kenya. Okay. So we'll give her directions to your office. And
absolutely. Happy to
come see you. Thank you. Sente Mapesa says, please ask the PS Foreign Affairs about the abduction of a Kenyan driver, a lady by the name of Florence Wanza Munyao, who was abducted by rebels in the DRC on the 27th of August 2024. The matter has been on his desk for 3 months now.
So I'm aware of this case. I'm actually aware of it. I want to assure Sente Mapesa that this matter is receiving our full attention. Our mission in our consulate in Goma is working with authorities in Eastern DRC with a view to tracing this lady, Florence, who's like you say, is a truck driver. I had mentioned earlier, Jeff, that our business between Kenya and DRC, despite some of the political challenges we have, is actually on the increase, and we are seeing the uptake of the use of our port of Mombasa, and so many trucks heading to Eastern DRC, are going out. And so it is in one of those tracks that Florence works. It is our very sincere hope that we will be able to give a report to the country on the state in which Florence is within the shortest time possible.
Okay.
Yeah.
We have one more. Out of so many more, but we have one more to read. It's from Leah. JP says, I really fail to understand how any sane government can commit 2 billion shillings from their future reimbursement while the citizens are dying and depressed in hospitals with a scandalous health care system. Referring to the Haiti mission, obviously. 2.1 billion shillings spent by the Kenya government. What do you tell Leah there?
I think it's a good opportunity just to mention that, as a matter of fact, the trust fund has been able to now collect $85 million US, which is 10 billion, in excess of 10 billion Kenya shillings. And so with regard to the reimbursement of the 2 billion Kenya shillings that we lent to the mission or to facilitate the deployment. Again, it is very clear that this is money that we will get back. It has no bearing at all to the access to health issues that that the viewer is asking about, because these are resources that were issued under Article 233 of the Constitution. So they are not really earmarked necessarily, for a given sector. They're part of our emergency financing for precisely this kind of issues, to meet what is called contingent liability, and address shortfalls.
All right. Bwana P.S., you've been very patient throughout the last few hours. Thanks so much for your time. I'd just like to conclude by asking you your thoughts moving forward. MFA, Ministry of Foreign Affairs at 60. The way forward, how do you see it?
And so it is our hope that the country can join us in the exercise we are engaged in. We are holding Kenya at 60, which is a week-long set of events that we have put together to be able to share with the country our journey so far, but also to be able to elicit from the country what ideas it may have about what we can do better to serve them. And so we have an open day as one of that process. On the 29th of this month, which is really in a week's time. Yep. We have an open day when we are setting up the ministry. We are opening up the ministry to Kenyans. We are putting up desks for each of our bilateral missions, representing each of our bilateral missions. That will allow us to tell the story of what we are doing in different countries in detail, and invite questions and comments from Kenyans, and generate an understanding of our method of work, and therefore seek the views of Kenyans about how best we can be able to deliver for them, because we exist precisely to be able to advance our security and peace interests and our commercial interests, amongst others.
So Kenya's standing on the global stage is solid?
It's never been more solid, Jeff. It is solid because when you look at it today, Nairobi is one of the most respected multilateral capitals in the world. As a matter of fact, it is the only multilateral capital in the global south. We host UNEP, we host UN Habitat. The UN has decided to invest $360 million to expand its presence in Nairobi. That's a vote of confidence, okay? When you look at the issues around climate and building resilient economies, again, Kenya's voice is highly regarded. We held the Africa Climate Summit here. The Nairobi Declaration is now the reference document with regard to Africa's position in terms of dealing with the climate crisis, okay? I mean, we chair the Africa Group of Negotiators through Ambassador Ali Mohammed, Again, Nairobi is highly regarded when it comes to matters tech. not last year, but this year, Kenya has been #1 in attracting investment in startups within the tech sector. Again, a testament that our country is a very serious sort of destination for foreign direct investment. And so it's my view, really, that our reputation is solid and our foreign policy is working for Kenya's interests.
Dr. Korir Singh, great to see you, man.
Appreciate it, Jeff.
Thanks so much for your time.
Always a pleasure.
Really appreciate it. And good luck going forward, okay?
Thank you, sir.
That's Principal Secretary, for much for your time.
Always a pleasure.
Really appreciate it. And good luck going forward, okay?
Thank you, sir.
That's Principal Secretary for Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation, Dr. Korir Singh. Calling it like he sees it, folks. He's answered most of our questions, and I hope he has answered yours as well. I'm sure he has, especially now that we're getting closer to midnight. You can take a photo before I finish? All right.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks for your time, sir.
Thank you, man.
Appreciate it.
We should do
Great job.
Let's do
Great
that.
job.
Okay.
And here's a gentle reminder, folks, that JKLIVE